Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week of the Max Potential Habits podcast. We have on an incredible guest today who calls himself the Australian real estate mate. Really big player in the real estate investment industry. He has an active role in over $90 million of investments. And what really attracted me to him and his story was I found him on LinkedIn and we connected, and he was talking about coming all the way from Australia to build his American dream. And it ended up being through real estate. He showed up in the States with a negative net worth of $50,000, unseasoned credit, and only $2,000 in the bank, and has built a really thriving, successful business with, I believe, 8 Aussie friends, siblings,
yes.
Your mates. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Bryce Robertson, and he's going to share his incredible history. We're going to talk about lifestyle freedom. We're going to talk about how to build wealth through real estate. We're going to talk about the challenges of building a business and what happens as you grow to those bigger numbers and really want the lifestyle freedom. He'll share his book. Something that attracted me was I read in his book, it's called 10,000 Miles to the American Dream. And he talked about how T. Harv Eker was one of the people who wrote a statement about the book. And I was like, T. Harv Eker is awesome. This guy and I need to chat, and my community would love him. And so he is on today. So welcome, Bryce, to the Max Potential Habits podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. Glad you're here. So at first, I'd love to hear your background story. I know it sounds like a really powerful one. So share with us how you came to the States, what brought you here, and some of the stuff that you've experienced along the way.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm an Aussie. I grew up down under. I came from Brisbane, Australia. And where I grew up, it's a very blue-collared sort of area. A lot of people working on the tools and having a good life that way. And I enjoyed school. I went through school and I had fun, mostly like playing sports and all that kind of stuff. But then once I got to grade 9, I realized, hey, like, after grade 12, I have to go to university or I'm going to get into a blue-collared working career. And they were the two options that I thought I had. I had very limited knowledge at the time. I thought they were my only options. And it was really clear to me that I needed to be creative and I needed to be doing something productive. And so I leaned towards being a blue-collared worker. So I got a job as a welder, actually, and got an apprenticeship, and then ended up becoming a qualified welder and steel fabricator within a couple of years. And then I went out to the mines in Western Australia and I started working the underground gold mines and, saving up some money. And I thought, well, this is cool, but this isn't actually what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to travel. So I saved up a bit of cash, and then I had a plan. I was going to travel the world for 6 years. Not continuously. I had to work along the way. And this was how I did it. I started off in London. I based myself there, and I would work for, say 3 months at a time, save up a bunch of cash. And then I would go traveling in Europe. And then I would come back when my money ran out. And so I continued that cycle in the UK, Europe, and Africa for about 3 years. And then I went over to Canada. A little bit of a change in scenery. I lived in the mountains there and got right into snowboarding and downhill mountain biking. And I continued to work the whole time I was there for about 2 years. And I saved up a big chunk of cash this time. And then I took off on an 18-month surfing and scuba diving trip down in Central and South America. And that was in the last 6 months of that trip. That's where I met my wife, Tiff. Oh, she's my now wife, Tiff. And she's a native from California. So naturally, we progressed to come to America. And then once I got to America, it became really clear really quickly that this is totally the land of opportunities. The barriers of entry to get involved in business or real estate or be successful as an entrepreneur in America are so much lower than other countries where it's much harder to get a start. It's really, really amazing. So anyway, fast forward, and I didn't have the best situation. You mentioned it before. When I started out and I wanted to get involved in real estate, I had a net worth of negative $50,000. I had $2,000 in the bank and unseasoned credit. And I wanted to be a mobile home park investor because I had looked at mobile home park profits and I'm like, yeah, I want to get involved in that. So with a lot of tenacity and drive, I ended up getting my first park under contract. And 3 months later, I closed on it and became a proud mobile home park owner. And I ended up putting that deal together using the power of syndication or the power of other people's money. And so I had other investors that wanted to be involved in a deal. They teamed up with me on that one. I did the work. They brought the money in. And I continued to use that kind of structure as I've grown and built my business over the years. So fast forward from that, 2.5 years later, my wife and I retired ourselves from our day jobs and we became financially free and were put in a position where we could recreate the life that we used to live, traveling all over the place. But this time, not only does our money not run out, our money grows exponentially as well.
Nice. That's everyone's dream, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to hear from you when you say financially free, what would you say is the definition of financial freedom? I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but what would you say the definition of it is?
Sure. When your investments, when your passive investments are paying for your lifestyle expenses, you're in a position at that point where you can choose whether you work or not. You can choose how you spend your day. And that didn't necessarily for me mean that I was going to stop working, but it's really, really cool to have that freedom of choice of, hey, I'm going to work now, or hey, I'm going to take the next 6 months off and recharge on a few things.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful that we often, I think, have a fantasy of, making a whole bunch of money, but that number is different to everyone based on what their lifestyle is like and what they really want to create in that financial freedom. So I've talked to a lot of different people about money in their money world. And for some people, that's millions and millions of dollars. And for some people, it's less. It depends on what you want to create. But it's when, exactly like you're saying, that when the passive income allows you to choose whether you want to work or not. And, for me, I love what I do so much that I go, I can't imagine ever just not working. But, it is nice to have the choice and the freedom and the flexibility to travel around and do whatever you want to do. So let's talk about that a little bit. When you talk about true freedom lifestyle, for listeners who are in the mode of building businesses, looking for opportunities to build businesses, why did you choose real estate? And, you said you did the hard work to become a mobile home park investor and get your first one under contract. I'm curious what attracted you to that specifically.
Sure. So in the beginning, my wife and I explored the three main ways that we can be successful or create massive wealth. And that's the stock market, owning a business, and real estate. And in the beginning, we tried our hand at all of them. We even got into network marketing and we were playing around with some different stock market strategies and foreign exchange and looking at fixing and flipping homes. And I had my hand in about like 6 or 7 different pots and it was exhausting. And I was having mediocre success in each of those areas. So I'm like, all right, I have to laser focus here. And it was really clear to me that I wanted to, it was going to be in real estate. I had at that point, I had a 17-year background in construction and, real estate's tangible. If things crash, real estate still exists and it's still got some kind of value. And there's a million ways to make money in real estate as well. So, and my wife at the time had a background in finance, mortgage and finance of about 10 to 12 years or something like that too. So it was a clear choice for us, but then I had to pick an asset class or a strategy in real estate. So I looked at all the different ways that we could make money and I looked at profit and losses and I looked at the financials and the risk to reward and whatnot. And I looked through a lot of different strategies and mobile home parks to me just seemed to be the clearest path with the most upside.
Awesome. And tell me more. I'm so curious about more because for you, like when you're looking at different classes, is that the number one class that you invest in now still?
Yes,
Okay.
it is the number one class I invest in still. And it's arguably one of the hottest real estate asset classes in 2020. So,
Okay. You said hottest. Tell us it more because I know, does your book specifically address the mobile home assets as building okay. I
Yes,
wasn't
my
sure. I haven't
chapter
looked at the
does.
chapters yet.
Yes. Yeah. No, the book was written by 8 of us. We're all
Okay.
co-authors, the real estate mates, and we each had a chapter, and we each have our own specialty in real estate. Some of us are in multifamily apartments, some in technology, some talking about how to raise capital, a lot of different topics in there. And yes, my topic is on mobile home parks. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I have a question, because a lot of the listeners are either working a job and transitioning into entrepreneurship, or maybe are full-time entrepreneurs and are looking for extra ways to diversify their portfolio and to build their wealth. Would you say that this is something that you can do on the side? Is it something you need to put your full-time energy into?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two different ways to approach it. We can approach mobile home park investing from an active perspective, which is what I do. I actually go out there, I find the deals, put them under contract, negotiate, put the deals together, and then I bring investors to the table, and then we go through the ride together. And then I manage the park and oversee offsite operations, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to be a passive investor, you can also invest in these types of deals as well, because there's large deals and there's lots of rooms and lots of room in these deals. And if I was to go out and just do mobile home park deals with my own money, I would never be able to grow as quickly as if I brought investors in. So we bring investors in to join the ride so they can take advantage of it passively. So if you want to invest in mobile home parks passively, it really doesn't really take that much time. You just need to make sure that you understand the asset class, understand what you should be seeing, understand what you should be seeing from an operator's perspective. So you make sure you're getting involved in the right deal with the right person. And I would actually urge any people out there wanting to invest in any type of investment to put more of an emphasis on the people managing the investment than the actual investment itself. Because a good investor can take an average investment and make it excellent. And a bad investor can take what would seem to be a really good investment and not really perform that well.
Yeah, that's
But it,
smart.
yeah. And if we're going to invest passively, it really doesn't take much time apart from getting educated, making sure you know what you want, know who you want to invest with, and then getting involved in investing. And, we give payouts to our investors on a quarterly basis. On some investments, it's even on a monthly basis. And then we give out quarterly reporting. And there's not really anything else a passive investor has to do. But if you're going to get involved on an active side of things, I would cut out like an absolute bare minimum of 10 hours a week. But if you really want to be successful and make big changes, I would cut out, 20 hours a week, 15 to 20 hours a week. And if you're doing anything over 20 hours a week, then you're opening yourself up for massive success. And I started this when I had a full-time job. I was working 10, sometimes 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. And so my friends didn't see me for a while. I obsessed with mobile home parks. Instead of all of the other hobbies that I had at the time, I dropped everything, kept my fitness, I kept my my day job, and I just worked on mobile home parks. My friends probably thought I was crazy. They're like, "What do you mean you're not coming to the football game? What do you mean you're not coming to the baseball game? What do you mean you're not coming to the bar? You're not coming to the barbecue?" I'm like, "No, man, I got to take care of my future." And then 2.5 years later, they're like, "What do you mean you can travel the world for 6 months?" And so,
Yeah.
if you put your head down, then you can get a lot done.
I love that. Let's go there because, this is ultimately a mindset and habits podcast for entrepreneurs. And I think that that's such a powerful point you're making, is that laser focus, putting your head down and really thinking about the offset of pleasure in the moment to have the future gain. And a lot of people, I think it's why I love the entrepreneurial mindset so much, is because people are willing to do that. They go, I see if I put in the work now, I'll have the long-term lifestyle that I'm wanting to create. So can you talk about that a little bit? What did it take for you, to shift your mindset and go, I want to get really serious and laser focused here? Talk to us a little bit about that.
That's interesting. When I was in the exploration stage and finding out what I wanted to do, I went to a real estate investors meeting, and you can go on Meetup and find them. They're in every city. There's tons of them. And I went to one, and I'm sitting there, and this guy at the front of the room is telling me that we can get involved in real estate deals. We don't have to have any experience. We don't have to have any money. And we don't have to have good credit or anything like that. We can just get in there, do the hard work, and team up with other people who have the money and the resources, etc., and not necessarily the time. So it's like a good match. And I thought, yeah, it kind of sounds cool, but it sounds a little bit unbelievable too. And then I was talking to the people that were sitting behind me, and they were older couple, probably like in their late 60s, dressed in Tommy Bahama gear. They look like they just jumped off a cruise ship. And I said, come on, guys, like, is this really real? And they're like, yeah, we've done 3 deals like this year. And I'm like, really? And we got in a conversation. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I spoke to other people in the room, and there was like 2 other people in the room that had been doing it too. And I'm like, if these guys can do it, I can totally do it. And it was like, at that point, it was game over. Like, I just knew it was possible. Once other people had shown me it was possible, game on. What do I have to do?
I love that. I wish I was sitting next to you so I could give you a high five. Because, it's this thing, I had the same thing for me in coaching world, and just like real estate investors, there's a lot of real estate investors and there's a lot of coaches in the world. And true, I know some coaches that make 20 grand a year. I also know coaches who make $15 million a year, so it's like when I went, similarly, I went to right when I graduated from my program for getting my doctorate, I was at this, I had the week after, my treat to myself was to go to this event to look at online business building for coaches. And I was there, and out of the room of, it was probably about 1,000 people. There was, I got to talk to enough people that said, oh yeah, I'm making 6 figures plus, I'm making 7 figures plus, and I was like, oh yeah, it's on, game on. I'm going all the way, because same with me, when I see the potential for the possibility, and I know I just need to focus and put in the work, doing something that I love doing, the sky's the limit. So I think that it's really important to point out for listeners, if you're whatever industry you're in right now that you're trying to build a business, stop trying, start doing, dedicate, decide, and commit. Like something you have that's really powerful, Bryce, is your commitment. You made the decision and you took action on it. And really 2.5 years is, I'm sure you put in a lot of time and energy during those 2.5 years, but what a powerful payout.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've created a foundation of success for the rest of your life. And now you have that skill that once you become, I don't know what your long-term goal is for financial freedom, but once you learn how to do that, you can always do it again and again and again.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. So talk a little bit about some of the challenges you had along the way, because I think sometimes when people are highly successful, especially fast, I think other people think it's an anomaly instead of really looking at how hard they worked and what their mindset was along the way when the challenges came. So could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you experienced and what you did in those hard moments?
Sure. Yeah, challenges, that's a really, really good topic, because challenges in real estate or business in general, doesn't matter what you're doing. I can absolutely guarantee 1000% that if you're pursuing something, there will definitely be challenges that pop up. So you need to know how to handle them. And I was actually driven early in the stage. My drive towards getting where I wanted to be wasn't so much being drawn towards the goal. It was more being drawn away from being stuck in the job that I was in. And I just wasn't satisfied with my career. I was like, I kind of felt lifeless. So I was really motivated to have no more of that. And if I'm going to go towards that, then that's even better. So in the beginning, I told you my circumstances were negative net worth, $2,000 in the bank, unseasoned credit. And I went out there in the beginning, total novice, and I put on credit cards about $30,000 worth of coaching and training in the real estate space. But I didn't really source out who I was getting coaching with. I was just so excited. I'm like, let's do it. So I did it, and I joined this group, and they offered a mentor who was like the best of the best, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, cool. When I get a park under contract, I don't know how I'm going to get it across the finish line. I'm going to call my coach. So I called up my coach. No answer. No one was there at all. And then I'm sure this is not what you do at all, but
definitely not.
So I couldn't get hold of my coach. So I had to call the organizers of the group, and they said, oh yeah, well, let's try and get hold of him. And then after a while, he ended up getting back to me, and he called me up and he's like, Bryce, what's going on? They told me you need my help. I said, yeah, look, here's my circumstances. Here's the mobile home park. How am I going to do it? How am I going to get it together? And he's like, wait up, run that by me again. You've got a negative net worth. You've got $2,000 in the bank and unseasoned credit. He's like, you're dreaming, kiddo. You're never going to do it. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. You're not going to do it. It's just
That's
not
interesting
possible.
coaching.
No kidding. He said, bro, like, why don't you just come back down to the group and do like single family deals like everybody else is doing and forget this whole mobile home park stuff. So I just like, my jaw dropped, and I hung up, and I never called that guy back again. I
Good.
called back somebody else I knew who had been mobile home park investing. And he's like, you've got what kind of park? And you could get under contract. He's like, dude, I'll share a contract with you now. Let's do it. Let's get this going.
Nice. Yeah.
I was so driven to move away from the lifestyle I was living towards the lifestyle that I wanted to live, that it didn't matter. Like, you would have thought that I would have just gone, oh no, what am I going to do? But that was actually really refreshing. When my coach told me you can't do that, I was just like, I can't do that. Oh yeah, well, let's see, dude. Let's see who can't do that. And then 3 months later,
I
it was
love
game
it.
over. Closed
That's
on it.
incredible. And so what I hear in that is the challenge is dropping people who want to stomp on your dream.
Oh, absolutely. And like
Yeah.
we had to take inventory in the beginning and reduce the amount of negative people that we're spending time with and all of that.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
huge. Well, and even you saying no to your friends who are like, hey, come to the pub, come do this, come do that. There's a lot of distractions when you want to build a business. And I have a similar story in terms of, when people ask me how I've gotten there so fast, I'm like, I'm laser focused, I do not mess around. I mean, my company's name is No Fucking Around Coaching. Like, I practice what I preach. It's like, I'm serious, I'm driven. I know how many people I can serve and help through my business. And I'm like, I'm going all the way. Like, nothing's going to stop me. And, there's been plenty of people that say, oh, you can't do it. Or, why are your goals so lofty? Or, do you really need to be that successful or whatever? And it's like, it's not about that. It's similar to you. It's because I want the freedom to choose what I want to do every single day of my life. That's what I want, because I used to live in such a prison of poverty that I created for myself that, food stamps and all these things. I don't want to go back there. Like I don't want to work for someone else. I'm not employable, So in that entrepreneurial mindset, it's like, decide what you want to do and go all the way, and shut out the voices that are telling you can't, and, or use them like you did to go, I'll show you. Here I go.
Absolutely. And because it's going to happen. People are going to be like saying you can't do it, or saying you're wasting your time, or they'll tell you a story about how their uncle tried it and they failed. And like, you and I could do a podcast that would last for a year on all the reasons why we could fail doing something, but there's just no positive energy there that's going to do anything, results in anything that serves us.
Absolutely. You're so right. So a quick question. Do you and your wife do the business together? I know you have your partners that you also work with, but do you and your wife run the business together?
Yeah. So we kind of meet together on some business. She essentially has her own business. I have my own business. And then, the guys in the book, we've all got our own businesses and we do some deals together.
Okay.
But yeah, we kind of meet in the middle. In the beginning, and funny you asked this, because in the beginning, we tried to do everything together. Like, her personality is so strong and mine's so strong. We both needed to feel like we were going to have our own like win in the beginning to make us like feel good about being entrepreneurs. And it had to be something that we were going to own.
Yeah.
And so like we tried to join in the middle, but like, I wanted to do it one way, she wanted to do it the other way, and we kind of clashed. But then we had success in our own businesses, created financial freedom, and then we came back around. And we ended up, we do quite a bit of business together now.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I asked because I work with a lot of couples, and I think some couples jive really well together in building a business, and others like that. It's like, if you've got two really, really powerful leaders, sometimes it's like, oh, there's going to be challenges along the way. Not that it's not doable. I see it happen all the time. I like how you both were able to step back and go, oh, let's build our own thing and then come back together and create the lifestyle that we want to create together. But something else I heard in what you said that's really powerful, and it goes back to that idea of you calling another investor who was doing successful mobile home deals, or mobile park deals, joint ventures, the power of joint ventures. Because you basically just said, the eight people that you wrote the book with, they all have their own stuff, but then you collaborated on the book, and I'm sure you collaborate on deals. And then it's like you and your wife have a joint venture in a certain way. And I'm sure you're doing, your whole syndicate is a joint venture partnership with
Absolutely.
lots of people. So, I think that's such a powerful takeaway for listeners too. If you really want to take your business to the 7, 8, 9, whatever figure mark that you want to take it to, it's not probably going to happen completely on your own. You're going to need to create some joint ventures. So can you talk a little bit about that? How to align with people and what made you move in that direction?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would, like, the first deal that I did wouldn't have even been possible if I didn't team up with other people. And it's been like that almost every deal since. So joint ventures have been powerful, and they've been a huge part of me growing my business. And the joint ventures that I've been involved in have just kind of happened organically. There's been opportunities for me to have joint ventures with people where the deal seems really good and the strategy seems really good, but I just don't, like, if I listen to my gut or like my core, I'm not connected with those people
Mm.
at a level which I would feel ready to be in a joint venture. Not to say that it wouldn't be possible in the future, but the joint ventures I've done, I've felt, I've listened to my gut, and I've listened to my heart and how I feel. Do I really feel connected with these people? Because I'd totally rather pass on a deal where I feel there wouldn't be harmony there, rather than, move forward and have disharmony. Because, you can have all the financial freedom and stuff that you want in your life, but if you're not getting along with the people you're working with, then it's not going to be very enjoyable. So if anybody's out there looking to be part of joint ventures, don't try and do it because it sounds like the thing to do. Like, listen to yourself and how it feels. Does it feel like, are these the people that you think that when the shit goes down, and it more than likely there'll be things where the shit goes down, are they going to be there and they're going to work together with you? Or are they going to just like, hey, I'll keep everything for me and protect myself and throw you under the bus? And you've got to like vibe that out and make sure you feel comfortable up front. However, um, yeah, leveraging other people's teamwork is just so powerful, especially if you have opposing personalities. Like, I'm on podcasts, I'm out there, I'm speaking, I'm hosting events, I'm a front man. I team up well with people who are keen to do all the back office stuff and all the analytical things and whatever. Doesn't say that I don't have some of those roles myself, but when you team up with somebody who has opposing strengths, then you guys can, like, you make the power of three people out of
Mm-hmm.
two people.
Yeah, so awesome. Okay, first I want to highlight, I think it's super awesome to hear from a real estate investor the words harmony, heart, and listening to your gut. Like, it's rare to have a powerful business owner say those things sometimes, right? And or it's rare to talk about it so openly, because I think that it's something that a lot of people do, but they don't like to necessarily talk about that part. And you said vibe it out. Could you give
Mm-hmm.
listeners a little bit of some insight into how you do that? Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Well, let me go back to what I was saying before, how I joined this real estate investment club that had mentoring, and my wife and I put $30,000 on credit cards to be part of it. Like, when we did that, my wife and I both, because we spoke about it later. We didn't speak about it at the time. We just signed up for it, which is really, really silly of us. But we reassessed things later because we were very dissatisfied with the purchase. And we sat down, we talked with each other, and we said, hey, I remember just before we were like going to make the decision to actually go forward, I had quite a bit of doubt. Like,
Mm.
something didn't feel right. And like, if I listened to my gut, I knew that something was a bit off. But I suppose maybe my ego or my enthusiasm or the desire to get that financial reward was like, yeah, like the reward could be so huge. Even if it doesn't seem a bit right, I'm going to do it anyway. And my wife felt the same thing. So from that point onwards, we made it very important for us to, before we're about to make a big decision, especially a big financial decision, we just check in with ourselves. And we just, like,
Mm-hmm.
even if I have to sit there and just like close my eyes and just think just on the one thought, like, is this a good decision or not? And if I just have to lock myself in a room and just sit there for like 5 minutes and just think about it, like, oh no, we know these things inside us. If we just drop the reward and don't worry about the dangling carrot, like, is this the right choice for you? Is it aligned with your inner core beliefs and things like this?
I
So,
love it. That's so powerful. And you're so right. People, sometimes we get caught up in the moment and I agree with you. Like we have those alarms that go off and they might be big or small. And the more that you practice, I love the term you use, vibing it out. The more you practice it and the more you listen to it, the louder it gets. And so,
mhm.
it used to be for me, I would make a bad decision, even though I'd have that doubt and I'd be like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'd make the decision for a lot of reasons. Sometimes hard to say no to people, wanting to please other people, chasing the fantasy, those kind of things. And then as I started to realize like, oh, my body gives me a really clear signal when I don't want to do something. And then if I listen to that, then the next time it comes like in a split second, I'll be like, yes or no, very clear, pretty easy.
Mhm.
Sometimes it still gets, it takes me a little longer, but I think that's a really powerful tip for people listening. Listen to yourself, take time to reflect. And then if you're partnered, especially when you're making those bigger financial decisions, check in with each other because you both had that same feeling, and if you had talked to each other about it, and then again, I always think, here you are today. Sometimes it takes us taking the leap and then get going in a certain direction, and I don't know, would you take it back, that decision, if you could?
I wouldn't take that decision back because it allowed my wife and I the possibility to not make that decision ever again in the future. It was so
Yeah.
impactful that it's like we learned a big lesson. So no, I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah, I think that's that's what happens. It's kind of like if you and everyone listening, it's the in quotes mistakes. We
Mhm.
often, the greatest learning comes from some of the biggest mistakes. um do you like to read? I would imagine that you do. You wrote a book.
I do. Yes.
Give us some of your favorite books. Let's say two of your two top three books that you would recommend to listeners.
First book I would recommend is Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker.
Yes, I love that
That
one.
was that was literally one of the most epic catalysts for us to shift from the life that we were in into the life that we live now. Totally check that out. It's worth it. Um, two more books. I think The Unbeatable Mind by Mark Divine is a pretty good book. Um,
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, he's a Navy SEAL or an ex-Navy SEAL, and
Okay.
he really talks a lot about the mindset and how to overcome like seemingly impossible things mentally.
Awesome.
I think the third book, and I read this recently. It's called The Untethered Soul by
Yeah, love that one.
Michael someone. I can't remember
And
his
I
last
have it.
name.
It's funny, me, Singer, Michael Singer.
Michael Singer.
Yeah,
There you
it's on
go.
my shelf right there. I love that book. Yeah.
And
Okay.
he takes a topic that could seem so mind-boggling to explain, and he explains it really well, of how to basically just be grounded when crazy things are going on, or people are saying crazy things, or crazy events are happening, and how to be the eye of the storm and not let it affect you negatively. And in business, where there's a lot of challenges, that's been very useful and powerful for me.
That's awesome. I want to say it to listeners because you all, if you've been following me for a while, know my story of going from food stamps to six figures. And that the book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, is first why Bryce and I are talking right now, because he said that to me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in, let's chat. And then that book, it's small. It's, I don't know, like 100 pages maybe. It is one of the most powerful books I've ever read in my life in transforming my mindset around money. And it was life changing for me. I read it at the very beginning of this journey that I'm on of changing my mindset around wealth and that victim minded thinking. And oh, get it? It's powerful. So awesome recommendations. I'm curious for you, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've had in the last year of building your business?
The biggest lesson, it's
Yeah.
kind of it's a positive and probably even like amusing one. It's just like last year, my wife and I spent the first 6 months traveling to 20 countries. And since we'd been financially free, we hadn't had a trip that large, and it was kind of a test. But interestingly, while we were traveling, everything grew and flourished, and our business got even bigger, and we released a lot of projects and got involved in new investments. And we proved to ourselves that the less we work, the more we earn. And so that was the biggest lesson for us.
I
And
love
then
it.
there's totally systems to put into place for that.
That's awesome. One of my favorite mantras is the less I work, the more I make. Because one of my big negative money beliefs used to be that I had to work really hard to make money. And so the
Hmm.
more that I let go and allow, the more that I attract things to me instead, opportunities to me instead of feeling like I always have to work really, really hard for my money. So, I'm curious, when you say you traveled around for 6 months, how many hours a week do you work while you're on the road? Would you say?
Mm. It really depends on what's going on because it fluctuates. But I would say on average over those 6 months, I would say an average would have been 2 days a week.
Okay.
But then there was some weeks where like I worked half a day, and then there was other weeks where I worked like 4 days in a row. So, but yeah, I would
Okay.
say like somewhere between 1 to 2 days a week on
Okay,
average.
that's awesome. I like to ask that question because sometimes I think people can promote a fantasy of like, oh, I work 3 hours a week and I make millions of dollars. And other people are behind the scenes, they're working 80 hours and promoting that. But it sounds to me like you really have created a lifestyle where you have an incredible stream of passive income and it has created a really high level of lifestyle freedom for you.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
the power of real estate. That's awesome.
Yes.
So tell us, go there a little bit. Well, first, actually, I want to ask you, what are your top three max potential habits that got you
Ah,
where you are today?
okay. Number one, effective goal setting. Absolutely huge. In the beginning, I actually just focused on setting goals financially, and that was cool, but it didn't give me the rest that I needed. And so now I set goals. I set financial goals. I set relationship goals, not just for my marriage or for my family, like business relationships and relationships with my friends. I set goals on having fun and going out there and enjoying the fruits of life, doing the things that we want. I set goals spiritually, and so I can be the grounded, calm eye of the storm when chaos is going down. And I set goals in health for like mental, dietary, and physical health. So
Nice.
goal setting is number one. I'd say number two is laser focus. Like I said before, in the beginning, I was doing a whole bunch of different things. As soon as I chose mobile home parks, guess what happened? Ton of opportunities showed up outside of mobile home parks, and I had to say no. And it was difficult in the beginning, but I just like laser focused. No, I'm mobile home parks and mobile home parks only, not going to look at anything else. And that was proven to be very successful for me, laser focus. And then the third one is just unstoppable tenacity. Like challenges are going to pop up, you're going to get a million no's, and like if you have a reason why you're doing it that's strong enough, then there really isn't a challenge big enough.
So good. So good. Okay, I want to ask you in your effective goal setting model. So it sounds like you focus on different areas. So that's helped you
Hmm.
shift in a new direction. What else would you say is critical to effective goal setting? Do you set numbers? Do you do you think about your systems or your habits that are going to get you there? Or tell us a little more. That's a big topic for people in business world.
Sure. Yeah. Effective goal setting. I think, well, one of the main things is making your goals measurable. It's like, okay, you've got a goal to make $1 million, for example. Okay, cool. How long is it going to take to make it? And what main steps are you going to take to actually get there? If you don't, so many people come to me with goals and they're not measurable. That's not a goal. That's just a desire. A goal is actually measurable where you can quantify it and say, I'm going to do this by this time, and here's the rough plan of how I'm going to do it. And then you
Okay.
figure out the rest.
Awesome.
Definitely, I think the biggest thing about, being an entrepreneur or, being successful or creating financial freedom and all of these things, is not the end goal that actually makes us who we are. It's who we become along the way of the path that we're traveling builds us to be the person that can recreate the things that we've already created. And that's true like success. So in goal setting, a lot of my goals are like, who am I as a person, and what do I have to do to improve my relationships from a personal perspective, and what things do I need to overcome personally to be a better business person, to be more healthy, and things like this. So yeah, it's definitely getting down to a lot of characteristics within ourselves that we want to change, more than tangible goals at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah, I like that it's highlighted in your focus on a more holistic approach of looking at, financial, relationship, fun, spiritual, and health. It's not just what's this one number outcome. It's like, how am I going to create a holistic lifestyle that I love because I've become the person who could create those things from that perspective of the becoming idea, like an
Yeah.
identity shift, really.
Sure, sure. And like in the beginning, I was so financially driven and so driven to become successful with mobile home parks that I actually was neglecting my relationship with my wife. And I was like, she was like, "Hey, it's like Thursday night, let's go out and do something fun." I'm like, "No, I got to work, blah, blah, blah." And I had to pull myself back from that. And I'm like, "Hey, wait up. Like, what am I even doing this for?" Like, even
Mm-hmm.
while we're pursuing our goals and getting laser focused, we still need to have a bit of balance in these areas anyway.
Yeah,
Um, and so now, in the beginning, I set my goals, my wife set out her goals, and then we progressed through life, and then we would run into challenges together. And it's like, wait up, like we haven't checked each other's goals. We don't know where we're both going. So now we sit down and we consult with each other. We set our goals together. I set mine, she sets hers, and then we set them together. And
that's
uh,
awesome.
and that's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, linking I mean, I think the one of the beautiful blessings of partnership is that like you said, when two come together, it's more than 1 + 1 = 2. It can be 1 + 1 = 10. It's that
Hmm.
exponential launching pad of support. So relying on each other and knowing what your values are and knowing what you want to create, that's awesome. It's definitely something I've shifted big time in the last year is my way that I set goals, because I was so driven and committed. Same thing, I'd be so laser focused, I would neglect other areas of my life. And then I would get to the goal and I'd be like, well, wait, like I'm here now and I accomplished this, but then these other things have fallen apart. That's not what I want. And
Yeah.
so that's really, really powerful advice. So talk real quick about, I know listeners are going to want to connect with you, and it sounds like you have an incredible home study course. So it's called the Mobile Home Park Investing Home Study Course. Tell listeners about that, because I'm sure there's people out there who are going to want to look into building their wealth through mobile home park investing.
Sure, sure. So first off, I'd like to give a gift to everybody who's listening. And if you guys want a copy of your own ultimate goal setting template with instructions, then just email me, Bryce at propertyworksusa.com, and I'll get you guys connected. And works actually is spelt with a Z at the end of it, or a Z, depending on where you are in the planet. So I'll offer that to any of you guys. Just shoot me an email.
Awesome.
As
And
far as
I'll
my
have, just so listeners know, I'll have the email in the show notes in case you can't remember it or driving can't write it down. It'll be in the show notes.
Beautiful, awesome. Yeah, so like when I first started having success in mobile home parks, a lot of people like, "Oh, mobile home parks? I didn't know. That sounds really cool. Teach me more, blah blah blah." And I found myself having a lot of repeatable one-on-one over and over again conversations. And I'm like, "Hey, I got to get people in a group." So I actually created a bus tour where I took my students to one of my mobile home parks, and I would actually show them the operations and teach them on the bus. Actually, the first time I did that, the bus that we organized got canceled like 2 days before. And then I'm like, "Oh no, what are we going to do?" And then they said, "Oh, well, we're going to give you a bus. It's probably not the bus you're expecting to get, but it's still a bus." And they actually gave us like a party stripper bus with like a stripper pole down the middle and everything like that. So that kind of ended up being a bit comical. But yeah, so I teach people with tours to my mobile home parks, 1 day course, and then also got a 2 day live event where we dig a lot deeper into how to find a park, how to put it under contract, negotiate, take it over, due diligence, everything from A to Z of mobile home park investing. So if you guys are
Awesome.
interested in that, shoot me an email. I also teach people with one of my real estate mates, Reed Goosens. We both teach people the power of syndication and the art of raising capital like a pro. Same thing. That one's a 1 day course, and we basically teach you what you need to do to get set up to be a successful capital raiser or raising money for your investments.
Awesome. So many good resources for people out there who are looking for additional ways to build their wealth. And all of that will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, Bryce. It's been a really valuable conversation on so many different levels. I love chatting with people about their story and providing tips for people who are out there wanting to build businesses. And really, it's so valuable to learn from people like you who have been there, done that, and started from a place where you didn't even know what you were going to do. And then over time, it led you into this, and you've had such great success, and really get to have that lifestyle freedom now that you wanted to create. So thank you for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Be sure to check out the show notes. All the links will be there. Thanks for being here this week. As always, I'm so grateful that you're here. If you want, I would love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, some point that you got, highlight it, and blast it out to social media. Help us spread the word. Help us help you build better businesses. And until next week, I hope you have an incredible Max Potential week where you thrive and feel alive. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Max Potential Habits podcast. If you're liking what you've heard, it would be so incredibly awesome if you would subscribe to the channel and leave a 5-star rating and a written review. This helps me help more people while we grow our NFA community so we can rock it out together. For Max Potential Habits resources, go to nfacoaching.com where you can access all of my resources. There's free ebooks, PDF checklists, a journal template, a business mindset meditation kit, and so much more. Plus, links to NFA coaching on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you're super serious about up-leveling, there's also a link to schedule a free consult to work with me in group or one-on-one coaching. Until next time, I hope you have a Max Potential Habits Day where you get inspired to do whatever it takes to transform into the most empowered version of yourself so you can lead a rich, thriving, kick-ass life and business.